Hello there and welcome. My name is Dan Dowling. I'm the Regional Communications Manager for the Red Cross in Northern New England. And today we're going to talk climate and winter weather preview. And here to help me today is meteorologist Haley Bouley. Haley, thanks for joining me and
Thanks for
tell us a
having
little
me.
about yourself.
I am the evening meteorologist here at ABC 22 and Fox 44 in Burlington, Vermont. I've been with the station for about 7 years. Been in Vermont for about, I guess we're going on 11 or 12. So have forecasted my fair share of winter weather, and this year's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an
It,
interesting one.
it always is in Northern
Yep.
New England, as we've seen. And one of the things with your station is you have a segment called the 2 degree difference. And I know that relies a little bit on climate. Tell me about 2 degree difference and what that includes.
So it is a weekly segment that we do here at the station, and it is basically bringing climate to the community. So making the community aware of different issues. I believe this week we are airing one about climate change and maple syrup and how the industry is changing with warmer weather. So just a variety of topics that we regularly see here in northern New England. Whether it's winter weather, rainfall extremes, a variety of things that our viewers experience and how they relate to climate.
And you've certainly seen the effects of climate at the Red Cross as well. I can tell you that, in the past decade, the Red Cross responds to more large disasters, twice as many as they did 10 years ago. So we are certainly seeing the impact of climate on our response to people in need.
Mhm.
And, part of that comes, with severe weather in northern New England. We already had the flooding in Vermont
Yes.
earlier this summer. And now we're focusing our attention on the winter and what winter weather may bring. Disaster season doesn't seem to be a season anymore. It
No.
occurs all year long. And so we are, eagerly keeping an eye on, what winter may have in store. Now, I know NOAA puts out their winter weather forecasts every year. Let's take a look at what the forecast was last year, perhaps to start, and kind of give us an overview of what the prediction was like and what we saw there.
Well, yeah, so we were forecasted to be above average for temperature, which is exactly what we saw. But I mean, many folks will remember that it wasn't really a quote unquote warmer winter necessarily. We still saw plenty of snow, we still saw plenty of cold air. They just came in very, very short, extreme stints. So you remember early February where we had that bitter Arctic blast. That was in an above average winter, so an above normal winter for temperatures. So just because the forecast says above normal doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to see warmer temperatures. It does mean that we see more instances of heavy wet snow, which is oftentimes a big problem when it comes to power outages, down trees. That can, heavy wet snow that is always a problem. Um, Also, mixed precipitation, whether it is falling as sleet or freezing rain, which is another issue with our electricity grid, weighing down power lines and trees. So just because it is an above average winter we saw last year doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to see cold, we're not going to see snow. It actually means that we may see more extremes of these events, less of a normal winter.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like in Burlington we've had 11 of the top 20 biggest snowstorms in the last 20 years. That goes all the way back to about 120 years. So
Yep.
we've seen our share of heavy snow events. Doesn't necessarily mean the entire season has heavy snow, but we've
Mhm.
certainly seen an increase in big snowstorms, and certainly keeping our eye out for the winter ahead. So NOAA came out with their forecast. You put it on the air not that long ago. Why don't you walk us through what are some of the factors, some of the large scale weather patterns that maybe have something to do with some of the winter weather possibilities?
Yeah, so this year the weather patterns are really dominated by El Nino, which is an oscillation pattern in the southern Pacific. And so that is really going to determine the weather specifically for southern portions of the country in terms of a lot of extra precip, a lot of extra rain. Here at home, we've spoken to Dr. Leslie Ann Juthini Drew, who is the Vermont state climatologist, and she believes that there really isn't going to be much of an effect here in Vermont, New York, and New Hampshire from El Nino, New England specifically. But it is a little bit of a shift, though, not necessarily for not necessarily talking about precip for El Nino, but we're also looking at another above average winter. You can see from the seasonal temperature outlook that the Climate Prediction Center has put out, looking at above average temperatures once again for the Northeast, which means a similar winter to what we saw last year, where we saw big swings in temperature, right? We all remember, what was it, December 23rd, where we had that extreme drop in temperature, very quick, that led to a flash freeze. Just one instance of, above average temperatures and leading to really devastating weather because a lot of folks were left with, once again, without power. So this year, kind of expecting it to play out, not exactly to the book, but pretty similar. And it also creates a challenge for forecasters because you have a storm system that has all cold air with it. You're going to get all snow. You just have to determine how much snow you're going to get, right? You're going to get a foot, you're going to get 2 feet. You just kind of determine how much. Well, when you factor in some warm air at different levels of the atmosphere, then you find you have some sleet freezing in, mixing in. You have some freezing rain mixing in, which can cut down totals, but also um, aggravate the impacts of a system, create more challenges for folks, and create more forecasting challenges for us as meteorologists. So, um, not looking forward to it, an above average winter once again.
Yeah, it certainly keeps you busy for sure, and it seems like the pattern kind of changes, from week to week. And while your numbers at the end of the year may be a little higher, a little bit lower, you seem to get those punches of either cold air or warm air, and that all impacts the type of precip that you get. Now, look at the NOAA forecast for precipitation here, and
Mm,
while it doesn't have any big swings, it indicates that maybe there's a little bit more precipitation along the coast, a little bit
mhm.
less in the Great Lakes. You know, how does that kind of play out in New England?
Well, I'm curious to see how it does because we're kind of in a neutral and equal chances for above average or below average here in direct New England. Southern New England still above average for precip. We all know that they've had their fair share of rain as well as us here in northern Vermont, but in terms of precip, I'm curious though because we all remember the blizzard out in Buffalo last year. Those folks, they're in below average precip. So I'm curious to see how the lake effect machine, once we're going to start to kind of see that pick up in the really the next week or so, how that plays out, and if we do get a bigger storm system that produces a lot of snow like last year over in the Great Lakes. Last year was a prolific winter for folks, even Watertown downwind of Lake Ontario, which affects more of our region, prolific snowfall totals. So,
Right.
curious to see how that plays out. Um, looking at the numbers in terms of snow, we actually ended up in almost average for snow for Burlington. I believe the number was 73 inches, somewhere around that point, which is right on track for our average for snowfall. It just didn't all fall as snow all winter long.
Right.
Um,
And
so,
even though we had kind of a normal winter in Burlington, we saw some historic heavy snow across parts of southern Vermont,
yeah,
where they had up to 3 feet, 4 feet
yeah,
of snow in locations. And it all
yeah.
depends, on where that weather pattern sets up.
And where are some of the bands we've seen a an increase in bands of snow that produce 2 3 inch 4 inch per hour snowfall rates, which is a testament to the extra warm air in the atmosphere and the ability for these bands to set up and create these prolific snowfall rates. And so that's part of it. You may have a warmer winter, but it is also going to that boundary between the warm air and cold air creates these intense snowfall bands that put down a lot of snow.
Right. It certainly sounds to me that, our climate is impacting our seasonal weather. And, this is just another example of it. Well, the numbers may be flat, seasonally, we're going to see ups and downs and big ups and downs, it seems, as we go through, the foreseeable future, meaning bigger storms, heavier, intense, precipitation events, similar to what we had in Vermont this summer. And at the Red Cross, we say, have a kit, make a plan, stay informed, right? And
Yep.
it's important for people to be aware of the changing weather and be able to respond to it. Correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. I always tell folks to kind of check back with the forecast because we find that one forecast plays out all week long and then you get a little bit closer and you get a kind of a bigger change. So, with these kind of mixed precipitation events, that's often the case where you got to kind of check back on the forecast. You can't look at Monday's weather forecast for Friday and expect it to be the same, because in a changing climate, we've been thrown quite a few curveballs, and so checking back with the forecast, making sure that you are prepared for whatever Mother Nature brings to you. I think this year I've been really pushing that folks have kind of some sort of emergency power outage kit because we found that more and more folks are losing power during storm systems and folks are left unprepared. So, you're more likely to find an instance where you lose power for a couple of hours to a couple of days during the winter time than I think ever before.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly more important than ever to have a kit and stay informed, with all the changes that we've seen and expect to see, in the foreseeable future. Haley, it's been outstanding to talk to you. Thank you for all the great information you were able to share with us. If you're watching this video, feel free to like and share. We'd love to see you pass this on. And Haley, I hope we can speak again. Where can people find you in your weather content?
Yeah, so we're on mychamplainvalley.com, ABC 22, Fox 44. And I just want to say thank you to the Red Cross for all the hard work that you guys do. You guys are always there when folks need you the most. Folks that have gone through some of the worst tragedies, and you guys are there on the ground, boots ready to go. So we, as forecasters who forecast these terrible events, really appreciate the hard work that you guys do.
Absolutely. Together we get through it, right? And we'll continue to do so. Haley, thank you so much. Thank everyone for watching a little broadcast today, and thanks again for tuning in. Take care.